Wow, this UnitedHealthcare CEO murder case, well, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, definitely not your typical crime story.
No, not at all. And I think it says something, about the state of healthcare in America today.
It really does. It's like all these anxieties, these frustrations, they're just bubbling over.
Exactly. And that's what we're gonna dive into today, right? You sent me this Reddit thread. It was pretty intense.
Oh yeah, that thread's a bit of a rabbit hole. But it gives you a sense of how this whole thing is playing out online alongside that Guardian article.
Right, right. So we're gonna kind of look at both the crime itself, obviously, but also like how people are reacting to it, what it says about healthcare, the whole picture.
We're going to see how these online platforms are, they're almost like a battleground now for all these anxieties to play out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so first things first. The NYPD, they put out this warning, right? To all these healthcare executives, they found this hit list online.
Yeah, and this wasn't like some hidden corner of the internet. We're talking names, salaries, the whole works. And then those wanted posters started popping up right there in Manhattan.
Yeah, I saw that in the article. Crazy, right? Like it went from online to boom, real world, just like that.
Exactly. It's a scary reminder of how fast things can escalate. And with this suspect, Luigi Mandione, his notebook, they're saying it was pretty detailed.
Right, he's been charged with second-degree murder, fingerprints at the scene, the whole 9 yards.
But the notebook, that's where it gets interesting. He didn't just target Thompson. There were other names in there, other healthcare execs. He had a whole plan.
Wow. Okay, so while the police are, doing their thing, the public online, it's a different story.
Yeah, the Reddit thread you shared, it's pretty raw. A lot of people are actually celebrating Thompson's death. They see him as like this symbol of everything that's wrong with healthcare.
Yeah. I mean, one comment, it talked about this person's mother. She was denied chemo like multiple times. And it led to, they said, life-altering damage.
That's the thing. People feel like these execs, they're making decisions that directly impact their lives.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Right. There's this sense that, profits are put before people. And then there was that one comment, it was like, all CEOs should be considered targets. It's chilling,
It is, and that's what the police are worried about, copycat attacks, that kind of thing. People feeding off this online rage, this whole conspiracy theory angle.
So like this incident, it just tapped into somebody bigger,
Absolutely. It goes way beyond just one company or one executive. This is about, this is about the whole system.
Okay, so we got all this public outrage happening online, but what about the corporate world? How are they reacting?
Oh, they're freaking out. This is a major wake-up call for them. Global Guardian, they're a security firm. They said they had like a 70% increase in calls from companies in the 36 hours after the murder. 70%, can you imagine?
Whoa. Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like suddenly they're not so untouchable anymore.
Right. I mean, think about it. They're used to this sense of security of being, at the top. And now they're realizing, hey, maybe we're not so safe after all.
Yeah. The Guardian, they quoted this guy, Seth Comrich, he's the vice president of Global Guardian, and he said, it's a huge wake-up call. The mood changed dramatically in a very short period of time.
And then there's Keith Wojcicki. He's the global head of intelligence at Kroll. He said, corporate America is nervous. People are on high alert.
Healthcare is the target now, but who's next?
It's what he said. I mean, it does make you wonder, right? Like, where does this all go from here? That's the big question, isn't it? This whole incident, it's pretty unsettling. And it brings up these really big questions about power. Who has it? Who's vulnerable?
Yeah, it's not just about this one murder anymore. It's about, like, the whole dynamic, between, like, the people in charge and everyone else.
Right. And even though some of those online reactions might seem extreme, I mean, they're coming from a real place.
Yeah.
People are struggling with healthcare costs, access to care.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like that disconnect between, these huge executive salaries and people just trying to afford basic care. It's a recipe for resentment.
And it makes you wonder, is this a tipping point? Are we seeing the beginning of something bigger?
I mean, to answer that, we need to really understand what's going on here. We need to look at the whole system, right?
Exactly. We need to understand why this incident has resonated so deeply. Why people are so angry, so frustrated. And that's what we'll do next. We'll unpack the underlying issues in the U.S. healthcare system.
Yeah.
The things that have led us to this point. So we talked about the fear and the outrage after Thompson's murder. But to really, get it. We got to look deep.
Yeah, like what's going on with healthcare in this country?
Exactly. And that Reddit thread, I mean, it was, yeah, some of it was disturbing, but it also shows you how people are actually experiencing the healthcare system, firsthand.
Like those stories about denied claims, the costs, people feeling like their needs don't even matter.
Right. And that comment about the mother denied chemo for like 2 years,
Yeah.
that just stuck with me.
Yeah, life-altering damage, that's what they said.
Yeah.
It's like people don't trust the system anymore. They think it's all about profit, not patients.
And when you see those executive salaries, those huge numbers, it just adds fuel to the fire.
It creates this gap, right, between the people making the decisions and the people actually trying to get care.
Right. Like while executives are talking about profits and shareholders, real people are like struggling to afford basic stuff.
And that's where the resentment comes from. Like we saw in the thread, it can lead to some pretty dark places.
Yeah, no, it definitely can. So the question is, like, can we even fix this? How do we like bridge that gap?
Yeah, is there even a way? I mean, it's a big mess, right?
It's a huge challenge for sure. But we have to start somewhere. And I think like step one is just acknowledging the problem. Listening to those stories, taking them seriously, not just brushing them off as like, oh, they're just extremists.
Okay, so listening, but that doesn't actually, fix the system.
No, of course not. But it's a starting point. Then we got to talk. Real, honest conversations about how to make healthcare affordable, accessible, a system that actually works for people.
That sounds great, but can we actually do that? I mean, look at how divided things are. Politically, I mean.
It won't be easy, but doing nothing, ignoring it, that's way more dangerous. This whole incident, it should be a wake-up call. We can't just keep pushing this problem aside.
You keep saying accountability. What does that even mean in this context?
It means like holding people responsible, the people in charge, demanding transparency from insurance companies, from providers, making sure patients are actually the priority.
So it's not just about laws and policies. It's about the whole culture, right? The values behind the system.
Exactly. And that's on all of us, not just lawmakers or doctors. We all have to demand better, push for a system that actually puts people first.
It's kind of crazy how much power technology has, like social media. It can spread outrage, but it can also incite violence.
That's a huge part of this, yeah. We have to think about that, how these platforms are shaping things. But can we use them for good, too? Can we have, real conversations online? Fight misinformation?
It's a tough balance, right? Free speech versus, preventing harm.
It's definitely complex. We got to keep talking about it, thinking critically about it. How do algorithms work? How do these online narratives take shape? And how do our own biases affect what we see?
This whole thing, it's scary, right? The threats, the anger, people just losing it. And then this whole healthcare system, it's nobody trusts it anymore.
Yeah, it does make you wonder, where are we headed? And it's not just healthcare, right? It feels like it's everything. Everything's kind of falling apart.
Yeah, everything's on edge. Is this a turning point, you think? Are people just done with, I don't know, with authority, with institutions?
It's possible. And then you have the internet, right? It's it's this pressure cooker, all these feelings, they just build and build and then boom.
They explode. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, what role does technology play in all of this? Is it making things worse, or is it just reflecting what's already there?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, definitely not. But we can't ignore it. It's, I mean, think about how much the internet has changed things. How we talk to each other, how we get information, everything.
And in this case, it's given a voice to both sides, right? People with real concerns about healthcare, and then also people calling for violence, which is, obviously not okay.
Right. So how do we deal with that? How do we navigate this whole online world?
It feels impossible sometimes. Where do you even begin?
Well, I think awareness is key. You got to be careful what you believe online, Fact check things, be critical. It's easy to get manipulated, especially these days.
So media literacy, understanding how all this stuff works, algorithms, all that.
Yeah, and also just being able to have real conversations, even when you disagree with someone, Find common ground. It's hard, but it's important.
It's not just about what we're reading online. It's about how we're talking to each other, too.
Exactly. We need to create spaces where people can, share their opinions, even if they're different, and try to, actually work things out.
It sounds cheesy, but it's true. We got to do better.
We do. Well, this deep dive, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? from this one crime to like these huge questions about society, technology, everything.
It's a lot to process, for sure. We covered so much, the murder, the healthcare system, the internet. It's heavy stuff.
It is. But I think, at the end of the day, it comes down to choices. How are we going to act online? How are we going to hold people in power accountable? How are we going to make things better?
Big questions. Well, thanks for diving in with me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's been a good conversation.
And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has, made you think, maybe giving you some new perspectives. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and yeah, keep diving deep.